Hi everyone, welcome back to Outdoors Adventurecraft. I'm out today to film the first in my series Introduction to Knots. I'm no expert when it comes to knots, but I want to get better. So I picked up some reference material and I started going through the basic terminology and basic knots, and I want to bring you guys along with me as I learn some of these. Thanks for joining me here today on Outdoors Adventurecraft. So I've got some rope here. Let's get into some basic terminology. When you're learning to tie knots, the term for the end of the rope is just that, it's considered the end. The back part of the rope going back towards the length of it is considered the standing part. Anytime you put a bend in a rope like this, it's considered a bight. Think of it as you would holding the end and the standing part and pulling a bight in the rope. Other basic terminologies would be overhand loop, where you grab the end and pull it over the standing part of the rope, or an underhand loop, where you reach and bring the end underhand. With those simple over and underhand loops, more complex knots begin to be formed. For example, a very simple knot that almost everyone knows would be an overhand knot. Bring the end over the standing part and back up through from behind, creating an overhand knot. Obviously, the opposite, an underhand knot, would come from underneath and go down through, but they're both the same knot. Some of the more practical knots that we would use as we go forward in this series are based on these terminologies. The end, the standing part, a bight in the rope, overhand, underhand, and so forth. For example, a good knot for creating a good handle in a rope for pulling on it might be a figure eight, which is simply an overhand followed by an underhand and then back down through the original knot. And you can see that 8 forming. So they call that a figure 8 knot. And it's something that you can grab onto that gives you some grip on the rope, but it'll actually come back apart a lot easier than an overhand knot, which can tend to bind. Another simple knot that you might want to use would be an eye knot. An eye knot is simply forming a bight in the rope, then treating that piece of rope as you would an end and a standing rope, and then forming an overhand loop and then back into an overhand knot. This would be considered an eye knot. You could use this to attach a carabiner to, or to hook over a post or pole. But a stronger version of an eye knot was the figure 8 eye knot, just like we looked at a minute ago. So you start with your end, your standing part, you get yourself a bight, and again you treat now this newly formed loop as an end and a standing part. You come overhand, as we did in the figure 8, then underhand, as we did in the figure 8, and then back up through with both parts, so that you get a much stronger eye. It divides the weight of the knot out over a larger surface area of the rope, therefore it can take stronger loads. Now a knot like this is really only to be designed to be loaded in 2 ways. So at the eye point and at the standing end, it's not designed to have any weight on the end, because it could bind in a weird fashion. But guys, that was really all I wanted to come to you guys with today, was basic terminology. Go back through the video, make sure you understand what the end of a rope is, the standing part, what a bight is, overhand loop, underhand loop, the basic overhand and underhand knots, followed by the figure 8 and obviously a figure 8 eye knot. So that's all I wanted to cover here today, guys, and look forward to future videos where we can get into some more in-depth knot work. So that's going to be it, everyone. I really just wanted to shoot a really short introduction to my knot series of videos, just cover the basic terminology and show some really simple knots. We'll get back to you real soon, and we'll start to expand our knowledge together. Thanks for joining me here on Outdoor Adventurecraft.